Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And you see we're up and rolling 2023. A lot of new content, but more than content, it's the stories. The richness of the stories of people throughout the city of Detroit that add to the culture of the city of Detroit. And this connects me to a lot of other people. And before it's all over, I see Detroit is Different having like one of those quilts or something of like all these stories of all these different people. So in about 50 years, people be like, yeah, I was on that show one time talking, you know what I'm saying? I pulled up on that house on the west side, and you can be one of those people too. Today, I have someone that is adding advocacy, education, economics, just a lot of different things, and more so just experience connecting to the city of Detroit. Myka Burley, how are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you today?
Good. Fantastic is an adjective not often used. I think I said that the other day when you said that. So
it's my favorite one because I'm always fantastic. You know, life is good.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. So we start this whole thing out starting with like the origin story, like you're a comic book character, because I think now with comic books being what they are in pop culture, you know, people are always like, what's the origin story? You, the city of Detroit. What's the connection? How did your family get here? How did you get here? What's the story?
Okay, so I am from Detroit, born and raised on Plymouth and Burt Road, across the street from Rouge Park. Okay. My family's from Detroit. My granddad came here from Ohio, and my grandmother's family is from Mississippi. So, born and raised here. Lived on Plymouth and Burt Road pretty much my entire life. Okay. And I've lived a few different places in the city, just outside the city, but I've been here for some time. Detroit is home.
All right, so a couple different things. We definitely got to always start with that origin. Ohio, Detroit. Ohio and Michigan had this interesting relationship.
Yeah, a little rivalry.
Whereabouts in Ohio, and what brought them here?
Alliance, Ohio. So really small city.
Yeah,
I've never been to Alliance. So that's where my granddad's family is from. I honestly don't know what brought them here. From what I know, my granddad came here when he was really young, and they planted roots here. The whole family is here. We still have some folks in Alliance, but I'm not as close to them as my granddad is.
Yep, you probably could like go there and then like walk around and they know.
And figure it out. Like, that's Leon's grandbaby. That's Leon's baby. Yeah.
Okay, and then you said Mississippi for the other side.
Yeah, so my grandmother is from Mississippi. That's where her family is from. I've never been there either.
Whereabouts?
I don't know what part of Mississippi my grandma's from. She doesn't have any family that's still there. From my grandma's side, we've got family all over the place. Everybody's kind of dispersed. So she's got a few siblings that have stayed here in Detroit. She's got some siblings that were in Cali. So I have a whole slew of family in California, primarily in like Fresno. Another city that I don't know a whole huge about. And then we've got some family in Texas now. So we've got people kind of all over the place.
Okay, so your grandmother's side kind of all came to Detroit.
Yeah.
Like everybody.
Yeah, everybody came. I don't think there's anybody that stayed in Mississippi.
What brought them here, and what neighborhood did they go to?
So same thing. I don't know exactly what brought them here, but a lot of it that I do know is just economic opportunity. There wasn't a whole lot to do to make a lot of money in the South. So when people migrated up north, a lot of folks planted seeds here in Detroit, and so that's where my grandma's family is from. And in the city, they've kind of lived all over the place. But where my grandparents are now, they've been there for, I'm 33, But they've been there for 40 some odd years. Wow. So that's just, it's a little bit of the family story. It's so hard with keeping track of all the history when it's not told to you and taught to you in the context that we learn now. Like I would love to tell my son's children about my origin story, where I came from, where I've lived, and the things that I've done. But I haven't heard all that information about my grandparents and their families.
Yep, you'd be like, this was Damon's Records. Like,
Right.
what is a record store?
Right. What is records?
So I pointed that out because her neighborhood, that was, when I think of that neighborhood, that's one of the first things I think of. Well, Rouge Park, Street Lords, Damon's, Starters, Cody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
all of it's right there.
old school dudes playing chess on the park and horseshoes and stuff like that.
And people riding through Rouge Park, bumping their sounds.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The Chandler Park of the West Side.
Right, okay.
So with this being said, the neighborhood, most of your family, whereabouts? That same neighborhood?
Yeah, so my grandparents had 3 kids. They all, were raised pretty much in that house. Went to Cody. My auntie, who's the baby, she got a little bad. She's, the rebel of the family, and she ended up graduating from Bishop Borges. But, they stayed there until they became adults. And then my mom, she moved to Wyoming and 7 Mile. So I split time between my grandparents' house and my mom's house. My uncle, who's the oldest, he has passed away since, but he's lived all over. He was in the Marines, and so he lived in other countries. Then he planted some roots in California for a little bit, had some children, built a family there, came back to Detroit, lived in Ann Arbor. His story was much more interesting than probably everyone else's. And then my aunt, who's the baby, after she graduated, planted, from high school, planted roots here, started a family, and she's still here. So she's in Detroit now, too. My mom is still in Detroit, too. My mom still lives not far from where, her adult home was on 7 in Wyoming. So she's still in, that Live 6, Wyoming, 8 Mile, cluster area right there. And my aunt she lives not too far from where they grew up on Plymouth and Burr Road. So she's about 5 minutes from my grandparents now.
Okay. So with this, all right, and first off, condolences the uncle.
Thank you.
He already sounds very Forrest Gump-ish, like he has some interesting stories in life.
All the stories.
With these different places, as the military has taken Americans, especially when we think of black soldiers, to places that usually we would not be from a different lens. It's just so many stories that connect in that. So more so now, I guess, when it comes to you, that neighborhood, we think of Rouge Park and what that represents. And then we think of 7 in Wyoming, which similar in certain ways, but very different in other ways. The roots of a lot of those families that have been in and around that Cody neighborhood, when I think of that Rouge Park, they've been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Some of the families 7 in Wyoming some have for a long time, but then also other family,
some newer families.
Newer family, a family community, and kind of, I guess, more so what your mom did. People get the house off 7 Mile near Wyoming when it's the kids, and then when they empty nest, they move, you know what I'm saying? So,
right, stay in similar space.
But you grew up in 2 neighborhoods that kids were prevalent. So I'm guessing you had a heck of a friendship circle when you were younger. What was that like being, I guess, in 2 neighborhoods where, people always say, kids don't play outside, kids don't play outside. You were actually in one of the neighborhoods where even today in the summertime, you'll still see some kids playing outside in those neighborhoods. You want to
know what's funny? So I don't have siblings, only child, and living with my grandparents directly across the street from Rouge Park, our neighborhood, like you said, was a lot of historical families. So our little block was pretty much older people. I think there was one family, the 4th house down, because I couldn't ride my bike past the house, that had grandkids there. But there were no kids on the block because the families were older. And I don't have siblings, so I would go in the backyard and play. But I didn't have a lot of neighborhood friends growing up. And I never went to neighborhood schools either. And my grandparents... because I was the baby, because I was their grandkid, but I was there with them 90% of the time. It's no, this is the little princess, this is the baby. You can't go around the block. You can't ride your bike too far. So I never had a lot of neighborhood friends. I was actually really sheltered as a kid.
Oh, man.
And I still get picked on about that today, as a grown-up. And then for my mom, on 7 in Wyoming, she lived next door to a daycare So, I mean, I would like play with the kids next door, like over the fence and stuff. And then the daycare owner would like let me and my cousins come over and come into the back area and like play on the swing sets or whatever.
Time out, I gotta give. That's a cheat code. Live next door to a daycare. Free babysitting.
Well, I don't know about babysitting, but free play place, okay? You got a little free playscape. Just go right over the gate. And there you have it. Cheat code, okay? Free backyard toys. No, but
that was a lot of free babysitting. Was the whole like you outside playing with your friends.
Right.
That's what that was. It was like, you were actually that kid inside watching stories with your grandma and stuff like that.
For real, we watch Nick at Night. We watch Nick at Night, and I don't tell a lot of people these things, but when I was young, my grandma used to make me read the dictionary. Like this is what I did. And I don't even know if I've seen it to this day, but I don't even know where she got this, but it was an index, like a thing of index cards on a roll. So I had my little spiral index card set, and I would have to write words from the dictionary or from the encyclopedia, write the meaning, write a sentence with it. It was such old people stuff, but it gave me a great foundation to understand the importance of education and vocabulary, because I was the only kid. I was with my grandparents a lot, so I would have to be around a lot of older people. So I was very, very mature, very young. Like I said, I was like the princess of the family, the baby of the family, until I got little cousins. But I was the baby of the family. Like I was in pageants, all kinds of stuff, all the big poofy, fluffy dresses, tiaras, the whole shebang. That was like my life.
Okay, I definitely want to get into that because that is like a culture, and you just dropped something that.
It was a thing.
So, kind of shout out my cousin, and I still need to talk more about that. But my cousin, Vicky, and most people know her as Miss Green at Cass Tech, but English teacher for Grip. But before that, she did this Miss Black Star pageant. So I do know just from her pageants in the 80s, I remember like what that world is and the commitment. And it's almost like a business venture or like if you have a top athlete child or something, like you have to, it takes energy. It's an investment of time, money, practice and stuff. How old were you when you started that?
When I started, man, I almost don't remember not doing pageants. I was probably 2 or 3 years old when I started doing pageants. And at 3 years old, you don't really have a talent, but I talked a lot as a kid. And so a lot of times my talent would be like reciting a poem or like doing, I guess what now as I reflect would be like a monologue of sorts. And that was like a lot of the talent that I would do when I was young. I took all the types of dance classes, although I'm a horrible dancer now. You would never know. I played piano, I did all the things. So that was the talents that I had for pageants. But I started at about 2 or 3. And I think when I got to about 12, 13, I'm like, this is not what my friends are doing. I'm all set here. I don't want to do this anymore. And I stopped doing pageants. If I had a daughter, I would probably put her in pageants too.
So as you were doing that, when you were, at 3, you're just doing as it
just
goes.
Whatever,
but by the time you get to like maybe like 7, 8, your thought process and commitment to it, what were you thinking? Were you like looking up to? And Detroit has a couple of like Miss USA, Miss America winners. Obviously, it's Detroit, so they Black. You know what I'm saying?
Of
course. But what was your thought process with that?
So, I consider myself now to not be a very competitive person, but as I think about when I was younger doing pageants and stuff, and these were all charitable pageants. So we were, pageantry was for fundraising, for charitable purposes. But I won every year. So I think I almost had an expectation of winning, which made me a bit competitive. And I think that the mindset that I was probably in at the time was just like, I got this. And I think it was a commitment, but I think when you do things really well, you often don't even think about the level of difficulty that goes into it, especially for other people when it's not something that they've always done. So I always did. I was always in pageants. I was always required to be really intellectually engaged. I was always like, this was a requirement. I was always required to be very artistic. This was like just part of my life. And so I didn't even realize that the life that I lived wasn't necessarily the norm. So I think that, yes, to the dedication part, but also to having an understanding of self that, like, now as I'm an adult and I reflect, like having an understanding of like my own self and the gifts that I had, and realizing that that certain things came easy to me that it didn't always come easy for everybody else.
And I'm asking this also from the lens of your mother now. So as a mom, and I guess it's just no perfect way to raise any kid, because I think like kids are, you almost have to, like, even if you have identical twins, you have to, different people respond to different things.
Oh yeah.
But definitely as in that maturation and the growing journey. Do you think that being in competition and being kind of in that zone was something that your grandparents, your mom, like, your family really was pushing you to be a part of, to like get you to embrace competition? Was it something that they just thought would be fun? What do you think their lens was?
I think it was a few things. I think that I genuinely think my grandma, I mean, and I don't want to discount my parents. My parents were very, very involved. They were very much so my parents. And they pushed these things along too. But my grandma really genuinely thought she had a baby doll to raise, to like have, to hold, and to like have fun with. But which is a good and bad thing. But I think that the thought process that my family had when they were putting me in pageants and even pushing some of the requirements that they had for me, like they have very high standards for me. They expected a lot from me. And I think it came with them. I think they had the patience and the understanding of the world to know that I needed to be competitive to succeed. And I think that they did the best that they could. And I think that they saw, pageantry as part of it. But I think that they realized, like, this is something that can be fun for her, but also it requires you to learn how to be poised. And this is not something that young women are always taught explicitly, how to be poised, how to compete, how to speak, and how to be in a competitive space but still have sportsmanship-like behavior, how to have proper etiquette. And I think that these are almost forgotten arts. So I think that was a big part of it. I think that my mom and my grandma always wanted me to learn how to present and to be able to be very chameleon-like and to exist in many different spaces. So it doesn't work to just be able to know how to navigate space with friends, because what about work? Or what about when you go to college? Or, life requires you to have very chameleon-like qualities, especially as a Black woman, especially coming from an inner city, coming from Detroit. You have to be able to navigate all these different roads and rooms. And I think that they really, really recognized that and wanted to put me in environments that would support that. And will give me the best advantage to be competitive in the marketplace in life.
Okay. So transitioning, you're like, okay, I'm kind of not feeling that anymore. And you're obviously growing your friend circle around this time, too.
Yeah.
Middle school must have been
Oh, yeah, I thought
different.
I was popping, okay?
Okay. So that middle school to high school journey, what was that transition as you are now getting the social circle? And I'm guessing now, this is kind of when people also really start realizing the differences in upbringing, because we all have different upbringings.
Yeah.
So, and things start like standing out, like for me, I think more, and most people, high school is usually when. Am I wrong for saying that? What was high school journey like? Where did you go? How did you like it? Did you keep that same competitive nature to studies and everything else? What was the flow?
Man, the middle school to high school transition was a lot of Myka feeling herself.
Okay.
And I think I lost a little bit of the competitive spirit, only because I was a bit disengaged in high school. To be honest, I was a bit disengaged. And I don't think that I think with kids sometimes, and I try to be cognizant of this with my son, when you push kids, sometimes you can push them away. And so
expound on that.
Yeah. So I'll expound. So it was such a requirement of me to be so intellectually engaged, to be so into school when my parents had control. And when I was like, I got a little bit of control now, I don't want to do that anymore. And I think that there was a sense of rebelliousness that kind of took over. I mean, I still got decent grades, definitely not as good as I could have. But I do think I kind of like, well, I want to be bad just because. I mean, I got past that, you know, as an adult, but I do think I went through a phase like that. And I'll admit that part of it was, you know, I shared that I lived with my grandparents, but part of that was because, you know, my mom struggled with alcoholism. And so, and she worked. I mean, she was functioning. She still is. And I mean, she does a great job. She's an amazing person, but this was something that she battled with. And so I think it was a little bit of rebellion from that experience. And I think now as I reflect as an adult, it's like wanting to make myself suffer, wanting to make my mom suffer and, you know, have her experience something that wasn't this perfect child. You know, I was always like the perfect child, you know, pageants, pretty, like all the things. And I didn't want to be perfect anymore for a long time.
That's unique. You speak to that as alcoholism when we think of different drugs in America. First off, I'm one to say, like, America has a culture of excess, of drugs, of violence, of sex, of
food,
greed,
everything.
Food, so like it can be abundance. Actually, the History Channel, obviously I do this content, so you know it would make sense when you put it together. But the History Channel had a documentary like series this past year, well, in 2022, where I think it's like 4 parts, where it kind of talks about gambling, alcohol, tobacco, sex, and those are the 4. And they talk about just the transitions and the growth of it. So it highlights different people along the lines of that. And I'm saying that because alcohol is so abundantly available. You know, we're going to post this interview later, but tomorrow is this is the day before the Super Bowl. So as we know, Super Bowl and beer like go hand in hand, like certain things in culture. And then also alcohol is such a part of the nightlife experience. And the nightlife experience is kind of a part of, as we say, I don't know when courting became like hookup culture, but I guess however you look at it.
Not for me, okay?
I guess it can. But you know what I'm saying?
Right,
but
no, I got you.
They go hand
let's
in
grab
hand,
a
but
drink.
I feel what you say. Like it's
such a pervasive part of social culture. Like let's grab a drink. And you know what's interesting to me is I do drink, and it actually took me a long time to be like, I can drink and it can be acceptable. I don't have to be an alcoholic to have 2 drinks. But I went through a stage where I'm like, well, what if I just don't want to drink anymore? How do you even socialize sometimes? Because quite often it's like, oh, well, let's grab a drink.
Yes.
It's never really let's grab coffee. Nobody really says that in real life. Well, maybe people do.
Well, I mean, in the morning, like it had, like basically
more for business.
After 11 o'clock, people are like, "Hey, it's 8 o'clock somewhere," and it's like, you know, and then I mean,
it's such a part of social culture. It is, and if you are not drinking, it's not uncommon for somebody to say, "What's wrong? Why are you not having a drink?"
Yeah.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah, because people, it's like the social pressure.
Like,
of
what's wrong?
I'm gonna drink if you won't want to drink with me. I
what's
mean,
wrong?
I want you to get something. So,
are you pregnant?
Give me 2
are you
anyway.
This? Are you that? It's like, dang, I can't just want some water. And I don't want to derail our conversation too much, but I went to a bar and I wasn't drinking at this moment, and I ordered a mocktail. The waitress was like, "You know, it's not alcohol in that, right? You want that? Are you sure?" I'm like, "Dang, that was the purpose of me telling you the name of the mocktail. Like, why you got it on here? It says 0 alcohol. You ain't got to do that."
We get a Shirley Temple. It's
like
we don't even make them.
I think that's a problem. Exactly. We don't do that. Like, what? Like, let me get a glass of water, please. You said you want a shot? I'm like, wait. No, I said water.
And I mean, I bring this up, and this is a cool discussion because it's so much a part of American lifestyle and culture.
It is.
But the flip side of it, like as you speak to your mother, alcoholism is very prevalent in many families across America.
Oh, yeah.
Because certain people's responses to it, and even like one of my closest homeboys, like he didn't drink for a long time, and now he started drinking, and it's like I would just always take it for granted because I can have a drink, and I believe my behavior, obviously it changes some things, but it's not to a point where like I'm feeling down, so let me drink, or I'm mad, let me drink, or usually, alcohol is a depressant, as they say. So usually, like, I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. I just lost my job. My girlfriend broke up with me. They didn't give me the raise.
It's either when
something
horrible is happening, or when it's time to celebrate.
Yes.
So it's like the good, the bad,
yes.
or it's just a Thursday. I want to go hang out with friends. You know what I mean? It's just like it's very, very prevalent and pervasive.
Yep. I'm in the airport and the flight's delayed you
want a drink
2 hours.
ticket?
The first thing you're gonna do is go right to that bar, like everybody else. Like, oh, I'm stuck in Charlotte now. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm sitting here talking to this stranger
about
drinking.
Who knows what. Yeah. But no, for me, like, I guess kind of taking it back to the conversation we were having before. I didn't want to be perfect anymore. I didn't want to be perfect. I wanted to feel a struggle. Like and I feel like I had that because I lived in two very differently dynamic worlds where, when I'm with my grandparents don't drink, they don't curse, they go to church. Kojic, if you know anything about Kojic kids, I was a Kojic kid.
Oh, for real?
Yes, Kojic kid. New St. Paul is where I grew up.
As what do they say? Saved, sanctified,
and filled with the Holy Ghost. Okay, it's real. But so that was my experience there. Very sheltered.
Wait, let me say this.
Yes.
If you ever get invited to a Kojic service, be prepared. Like carve out about 2.5 to 3 hours. And
it's better now.
Ready.
It's better now.
Because I was invited to like the singles ministry through my homegirl. She was like, "Come up here, it's cool. You need to."
Kojic has singles ministry?
I'm telling you. Yeah.
Oh, they acting a little Baptist now. What's that about?
That's what I was thinking. And then we went through the whole discussion, and I'm sitting in here feeling like I'm the Prince of Darkness or something. Like just saying like, okay, I think this, I think that, and then it's like, all right, let's get ready for the prayer circle, and I'm like, oh, they get down in here.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, it's a thing. But it was just very different dynamics. And I think that contributes to like this whole chameleon-like existence that I talked about before, where it's like, I'm here with my grandparents. It's very, very different than when I'm with my mom. And it's not like my mom was a raging alcoholic. She's drunk all the time, but she was a single mom. And the environment of a single parent is going to be vastly different from that of grandparents who are more established, who are retired.
And that's what I was going to say, because maybe the arc in life, too.
Yeah, where they were in life.
Yes,
yeah.
The quality of life you will have in your, like...
30s
is going to be completely different
totally
than like your
different.
50s and 60s, because like
totally
you kind of
different.
You got your almost like you can set your I assume 50s and 60s you can set your whole day up on the I'm gonna buy some new socks today, and you like really try different pairs of socks and all that stuff.
It's the thing.
Yeah, it's like when you 30s, a mom working possibly two jobs, you need to buy new socks. The store is closing at 10 and you're in there at 9:50.
Okay.
Like, hey, where are the socks?
You got to
at?
get the socks. But no, I mean, and my mom, she drove us. She was a bus driver. She drove Smart Bus. And yep, so she drove Smart Bus. Okay. Not the ones that you can just grab off the street, but like I think it was like Dial a Ride or something. So basically almost like chauffeur service, kind of sort of.
Kind of like Pace or something.
Yeah, I don't know what Pace is.
Oh, what Pace? Like Pace is a service that basically provides a lot of transportation for people like healing with rehab and things like that. So if you ever see the Pace truck around, you may see them in and around. So like, a lot of elders will use that service, but not just elders. It's a lot of like kind of, you'd be surprised the amount of people getting SSI, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
you know.
So she but she drove a bus, and she had to be at work at like 6 a.m. And getting the kid up, getting the kid ready for school, and it was just a lot. It was a lot. So most nights it just made sense to stay at my grandparents' house because I could wake up at a decent time and I could go to sleep at a decent time, and you know, everything was a little more relaxed and normal. And so so when I say that my mom struggled with alcoholism, I definitely don't want it to be taken as though she was a poor mom or she did a bad job or she did something bad in life. She just, it's a disease, you know what I mean? And she did and does the best that she can in life. And so, but it was just different dynamics.
And then, like we say, and that's what I was speaking to. Like, it's available everywhere. It's not like if you have like a heroin addiction, it's not like
you going out seeking.
Yeah, you're not turning on the TV.
You know, you just stop by on the way home. Stop at the store on the way home. It was right in your path. You got to pass probably 5 liquor stores before you make it home.
Liquor stores, I mean, possibly convenience stores.
Yeah, drug stores, wherever. CVS, Rite Aid, and you know, so. But it was just really different dynamics, and so there was this like sense of perfection that I always carried, and I was just kind of tired of it. And I think now reflecting back, that was a bit of trauma for me. Now that I realized that, and I think that my rebellion was in response to the trauma and wanting to be seen and individualized as opposed to, you know, being seen as a token. I mean, and like I said, same thing. I don't think my family did anything wrong by wanting to put me in pageants, pushing me to be highly intellectual, which I, you know, was naturally, but they didn't do anything wrong by that. But I was tired of being perfect. And so I wanted to rebel, and I wanted to be bad.
Okay. All right. And I assume because you were such a good kid, being bad was like, I'm not going to answer every question on this test.
And it was so stupid, the stuff I would do. It was like I would go to class. I would get like all A's on exams and stuff. But then I would like do my homework, but not turn it in. Like, what? Who does that? That's so stupid.
You put the answer, but not show your work in math. So get
right.
That's like, rebellion.
Right. I'm rebelling, y'all. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I said. I'm going to do what I want to do.
She was not in East Side High. That was like
right. Right.
Bayside High rebellions.
So I had my little streak of rebellion in high school and didn't want to go to college after high school.
Interesting.
I did not go straight to college. I think I did one semester at like Henry Ford College, but I didn't want to go to college right after high school. I actually ended up working at the casino.
Okay.
When I turned at MGM.
Okay.
And I worked there. I made more money at MGM than I probably make now. But so I worked there and I did well.
What did you do?
I was a server. I was a cocktail server. So I started on the casino floor as a cocktail server. Left the casino floor. I worked in the poker room, and then I moved from the poker room to nightlife. And I did that for a few years, and I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed the environment, the hustle and bustle. I'm a fast-paced, fast-moving kind of person. So I enjoyed it. But I got pregnant with my son when I was 21. And at this time, I was doing really well. I worked at the casino. I drove my little BMW. I had an apartment right off the river off Jefferson. I thought I was doing it. I'm talking about cathedral ceilings, the whole 9. But I got pregnant with my son, and life humbled me fast. I told my job that I was pregnant. I think about 2-3 weeks later, I got fired. And
this is first off, that seems completely like some human resources person is like seeing that like, what? That shouldn't be able to happen. But
it shouldn't. But it was a blessing. I needed that to happen.
Employment. But more so in this lesson, I say the difference between, and I often speak to this more from the business lens, like hustling versus business. Like sometimes people say like hustle business. Being Black in America, it puts us in hustle mode often because the access to like hard capital, like a line of credit of like $4 million just off of an idea or something, that's just not abundant. So when I think a hustler, like I always say, like a hustler is like, how do I maximize my money for today? Or like almost like right now. Meaning like yesterday they may have sold, I don't know, like, you know, a truck happens to tip over and, you know, you can sell 1,000 of these phones in one day. Tomorrow, even though they made, you know, $10,000 Thursday, tomorrow they're still going to make whatever move to make $300. and not even think to themselves, 1 second, I got 10,000. I can probably invest and do something because it's like you're
fast moving
like that. And
fast
it's even
moving.
jobs in our culture that can be like that.
Support that. Yeah.
That is
I think the
one
service
of those
industry,
that's what I was going to say.
100% service industry. I mean, and not that I need to, but the money is so good in service. I would never discount the money that people make who are bartenders, servers. Fantastic to do, especially if you like in college, building up to a career or whatever, or even something to do on the side. If somebody want to hire me to be a bartender tomorrow, I'll start. But no, it was great money. And I actually worked at MGM and I worked at T-Mobile and I worked on midnights. People were like, do you have kids or something? I was like 19. I'm like, no, I got the time. I enjoyed it. I enjoy making money. I like moving fast. I like getting things done. So I would literally get off work from MGM at 8 a.m. because I worked midnight, 7 a.m., excuse me. I would go home, shower, be at T-Mobile at 8:30.
And it
was so unhealthy.
I have this question too, because I didn't go straight to college, or I took a couple classes. I didn't take college serious until
I didn't
maybe
either.
28 myself, or 27. I don't know how old or what. How
When
old
you was
I?
grown.
Yeah,
Grown, good
but
grown.
I did have a lot of pressure that I put on myself at that time when still a lot of my friends were in college. Did you have that same, did you feel that pressure to produce, like, if I'm not, on campus like my friends, then I need to be doing something? Because I used to feel like that. Like, I remember one year, I think I read like 300 books in 1 year. I was like, I was in prison or something, because I'm like, I'm going to fill myself with energy. I mean, information, energy, knowledge, education. It's like, I'm going to teach myself. I was going to the library and stuff. I'm pretty sure all the library people thought I was like fresh out of jail or something. Yeah, it's like,
right.
It's like, where did you serve?
Right.
It's like, I didn't serve anywhere. I just
and that's
served
so sad that's what our culture, how our culture thinks of people who read in abundance. Like, what's going on with you? What you trying to do?
This is another part of the reality,
Yeah, it is.
So.
But, no, man, I was just trying to make some money.
You were just stacking up.
I was just trying to make money. I loved.
But money and then.
Just because I wanted it. But you got to remember, I was with my grandparents, extreme abundance. Like, you know how grandparents are overindulging with their grandkids? Yeah. It's cool for the weekends. Like, that's cool. You send your kids to the grandparents for the weekends and they give them all the candy they want. They give them all the stuff they want. Take them shopping on the weekends. But that was my life. That was like every day. And when I became an adult, I had to figure out how to sustain that because I still wanted that lifestyle.
Okay.
And so I worked a lot. Like I said, I would leave.
You were like that 20-year-old, like, you walk in, like, Andiamos, it's that woman that's sitting by herself eating dinner. It's like, damn, it's like, you was that lady.
I was that lady. Like, I was just, like I said, super young, just hustling, always working. And this is how people knew me. And and I don't think that I felt the same push as maybe some of my peers. And perhaps just because I'm a very social person. I'm an extrovert, but I am also I'm a solo person. I'm an only child, so I move solo a lot. And so what other people are doing rarely affects me to the degree where I'm like, I need to do something different. It's always like, what do I want to do? What am I feeling? How am I going to make the most of my situation? And to be totally honest, I made more money than most of my friends, all of my friends, probably more money than their parents at that time. So it really wasn't much that they could say. So I was like head in the clouds thinking I'm doing something. And when I got pregnant with my son, lost my job. I had to move from my cushy apartment off the river and move right back home. And it shifted everything for me. So before, where I was very much so like, where if people don't make something of themselves, that's on them. Like, everybody has the same opportunities.
Yeah, like a more Republican bootstrap.
Very Republican, figure it out yourself.
Because you were like, hey.
Because everything was given to me. And so my assumption was that was everybody's experience to some degree.
Or you had this opportunity, you did something to not.
So you can figure it out too. If I figure it out, you can figure it out too. But life is not that easy. And that experience humbled me, and it humbled me fast and hard. And it hurt. It was tough. It was tough. So, I mean, and then my son's dad and I broke up. So it's like, I thought I had this amazing boyfriend. I had this cute apartment. I had my little BMW, everything shopping every day, and it was like, nah, sis, slow down. This is not what life is. You have to be somebody. You as a person need to be better. And that was what I learned from that.
So did you reassess at that point in life and say, okay, this is what I want to do? Yeah. What did you come to?
Yeah, so that was when things shifted for me a lot, because it made me realize that if I didn't have a family, I would have been homeless, just like the people that I looked down on at one point or another. And that's not me anymore. And people who don't know me will probably be really surprised to hear me even say these things. But I would have been homeless. I wouldn't have had anywhere to go if I didn't have family. I moved home. If I didn't have home, I don't know what I would have done. And so it really made me realize how blessed I was. And so from that moment forward, I felt that it was my responsibility to live a life of servitude.
That's deep.
And so I started doing like really, I don't want to say big, but like organizing volunteer events. So I worked with the Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries, and I like self-led several volunteer events where we would like, I would get a group of friends or like posted it on social media. I'm like on Instagram, like, who wants to come volunteer with me? Who wants to donate to like make a meal and just go spend the day with people who didn't have the things that I had, who didn't live comfortable lives. And it was really humbling to hear stories and experiences that people would share with me of like what led them to those, you know, to the situations that they were in.
And as you say that, I want to highlight a couple things that you're talking about. So first off, in that, through a lot of these interviews and my nerding out of information, so homelessness is big in America, like very big, and hunger, very big. And then it's like layers to both.
Oh yeah.
So like sometimes when you hear homelessness, you think like, okay, this person is on the street, you know, sleeping, you know, under the freeway overpass. That's obviously a glimpse into it. But it's also people that experience, as we, you know, especially like my high school, like a Northwestern or something, like those young people that are growing up in that home with like very transient residency. So like, you know, we'll know like that person is like, we moved all the time. So like you'll be with your auntie for 3 weeks, and then you'll be with your uncle for 2 weeks, and then you'll be you know, at a grandparent's for another week, and then you'll be at a friend's house, and then maybe a couple days you're just sleeping out in the car, and then another couple days you're just bouncing around. And the lack of stability, and then sometimes this lack of stability causes other challenges. It's like, okay, you don't even have a mailing address. So it's like you go to try to fill out a job application, and it's like, damn, where's my mailing address? It's like,
or even if you want to apply for government benefits.
That too.
Or if you need information to be sent to you from your physician. Maybe, I mean, if you go to the doctor, they need to send you something. You don't have a home address to send it to.
Exactly.
There's so much. I mean, especially for a student who's in high school, if you want to apply for college. Yeah. And, you know, now everything is electronic, but, well, and there's a whole other issue with the digital divide, but still, but even back then, if you didn't have a home address, then what happens? Like, you miss so much information, and I think the cycle further perpetuates itself.
Very
and so,
much so.
And it's easy to fall down the rabbit hole when you lose your job. Maybe you already are not making enough money, but perhaps you lose your job, or you can't afford to take your kids to daycare. And so as opposed to, you know, you don't have family. Whatever, like there's so many stories that I've heard. I lost my job because I couldn't afford to take my kids to daycare. I had to leave my kids in the car. I got arrested, or I got a parking ticket and then I had to pay it, or they would suspend my license and I couldn't drive anymore. Like there are so many pathways to homelessness that when you don't take a step back and listen to those stories, you are completely unaware if that's not the life that you've experienced. If you've had this protection and shelter from experiences that other people have, you have zero clue. I was totally oblivious, and like living in a bubble.
And to that, I was going to also just, you know, always something.
Yeah.
Kari, I'm speaking on black people, like the amount of black men that are homeless across the nation is staggering. Like when you think about, if we honor the fact, I think we're a little bit more than 13%, even though that's what the census always says. But let's just go by that number has been the same since like the 1970s.
And how is that even possible?
I agree.
But I digress.
But yeah, exactly. That's just critical thinking skills. But let's just say that's the truth. The amount of black men that are homeless, staggering.
Mm-hmm.
You like almost every I've been traveling a little bit more, since things open up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In almost every city, you're gonna see so many black men.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side with black women, as when people talk about, the shelters for women, the amount of women in abusive situations that are like the amount of women that leave an abusive situation and then are right in a homeless shelter with children, it's staggering.
Yeah.
Or like now I've learned this whole like the term like sexual homelessness, like a woman that will, sleep with men to have, residency, like a
Even
place
for
to
the
stay.
night.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
a night or a week, or it's still very unstable. It's not
It
like
is.
you can't make a
It's
legal
just
document for an
survival.
illegal
It's survival.
activity. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is very prevalent, and it's one of those things that, as you say, like one thing
It's a
becomes the
cycle.
other. The other one that a lot of people, this is black, white, just Americans. I mean, the wrong medical procedures happen to you or a spouse or a child, and it's really tough when it's like a child, then
Yeah.
it can take you completely out the game. It'll
Yeah.
clear everything. And like what most people, it's like what type of coverage you have, and then you think you got coverage,
Yep.
and then you really start finding out what your coverage does cover, or if you're not up to date with everything, then it won't, I mean, it's like car repair, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you have coverage for
Things
this
worsen.
event, it's catastrophic event, but you weren't going to the doctor beforehand. Your child ain't been to the doctor in 3 years. Well, it was COVID. It's like, it don't make no difference. We're not willing to cover this procedure because we feel like it could have been preventative, or we'll only cover 15 to 20% of it. And it's like 15 to 20% for a
What's that gonna do?
$65,000 procedure.
I don't have that.
Homelessness.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's tough. And then, as you say, like childcare becomes sometimes a
Yeah.
difficult. I mean, and then in the flip side, I mean, people are living longer, so aging care can become
Yes.
something that can push people into some of these situations.
Yeah.
And this is also where, when we think about a city like Detroit, where we went from the largest stock of black homeowners to a dwindling and dwindling and dwindling and dwindling and more,
Yeah.
where I have a neighborhood that's almost like, it's not half and half, but so many more renters in this
Yeah.
community than homeowners, whereas you had, as you said, with your grandparents' house.
Yeah.
A lot of us no longer even have that home to go back
Yeah.
to any longer in the assets of our families, because it's like, well, I'm renting too, and if I let you come in the senior facility, then I'm gonna
I'm gonna have
kicked
to
out.
get. I'm gonna have to leave, and people can't take that chance.
Mhm.
Yeah, but no, for me, like I said, it was just a game changer. Like having gone through the experience of losing so much, and then realizing that there was a requirement of me, and my place on this earth requires that I give something to the earth. And like, it's not free to just be here. You don't just get to be here because you get to be here. You have to give something. You have to add value. If the world was meant for us to live in isolation, we would still be in our placentas. Like, we would still have the little placenta around us. I wouldn't be able to see you. You wouldn't be able to see me. I would create my own little world in my little placenta, and that would be it. But we don't. We're here to share experience. So for me, at that moment, I realized that servitude was a requirement of me, and it was a responsibility that I had. And so, like I said, I did all these events with Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries. I adopted families. I probably bought more more gifts for people's kids than I even bought for my own kid. This was like a good 5 years of time.
And at this time,
And I still ain't had no job.
I
have no idea how I was doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I
what
have
were you
no
doing at
idea.
the time? What how did your family respond to this? What was going on around you at the time?
I think my family had a realization, like, this is not her. Like, what is this? And they embraced it. They loved it, and they still do. So I think that they felt really proud that I was embracing this sense of responsibility for adding value to other people's lives. But I was like on unemployment. I still lived at home. And then I started working for my dad for a little bit, and that worked out well because my son was still small, so I was able to take him with me. It just worked out absolutely perfectly. So even when you said, like, this is an HR issue because you got fired from your job when you worked at the casino, but it happened exactly the way it was supposed to. Because like I said, even sometimes I sit back and I'm like, how was I doing this? Because a lot of these like events that I was doing, we were making food. I was personally making food for hundreds of people. Having friends come with me, serving food at the shelter, spending time with the people there. Those we would talk and listen and give our time and energy. And I mean, there's always so much more to do, but I'm like, I have to figure this out. So it was Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries. Then I did a few things at Vista Maria. It was just like I was really deep in the space of servitude, but I have no idea how I was doing this. It literally was by the grace of God because I did not make that much money. And it was a commitment that I made. But I also would ask people for money, like who wants to donate to this? And not like, hey, can you give me $10? It was more of like, this is what I'm doing. Who wants to contribute? And people were gung-ho about it. People loved it. People were happy to contribute and support. And I think what's interesting is that, that was 10 plus years ago. And like now, that's still very much so part of my life. Like I work in philanthropy, like for my actual 9 to 5. And it gives me opportunity to still carry this spirit of I am responsible for other people. I am responsible to other people. I am responsible to give my time, talent, and treasure to the earth. And I feel like I'm able to still do that through my work now. But no, it was real for me. Like, this is what I did. This is just it was a big part of my life, is just giving back, volunteerism, individual philanthropy, which I didn't even know that was necessarily the term for it then. I wasn't thinking about it that way. I just knew that was what I had to do.
Yeah, especially like when we think philanthropists, we think like
big money bags. I ain't have big money.
Yeah, I'm a billionaire, and I
had the little bitty pockets.
Yeah. You don't think philanthropists like, hey man, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy you some gloves.
Yeah, right.
You don't think that's philanthropy, but it does connect. How did your friends take to it?
They loved it too. I mean, everybody was down. Like I got no resistance from anyone. Like
I mean,
what
but
are you doing?
Not the resistance as much as like, because it was such a cultural shift, and I'm guessing they saw
I got
the
new
arc.
friends. I got new friends.
And did you at that time, because that is one of those moments where you pivot in life, do you feel that you went through like the emotion of some depression, some anxiety, like what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like as you grew, and then did that like reconnect you and like fill your cup up, where now it's like, okay, now I got my swagger back, as they say. You know?
Yeah. So when everything happened, when I was pregnant with my son, losing my job, having to move home, I think that was probably the hardest time in my life. It's like we have this view of ourselves, and my view of myself was so big, very big ego, very untouchable type of vibe. I'm kind of embarrassed to even say these things out loud, but this was really who I was. And having to like getting knocked down by life, God was like, no, sit down. I had to sit down, and it was very, very hard. I was incredibly depressed. And I didn't enjoy pregnancy. I know you're not supposed to say that. I didn't enjoy my pregnancy. I was sad. I was really sad about where my life was. And it's like, you can't find a job when you're pregnant. Like, who's going to hire somebody else pregnant? But I think coming into the realization is like, wait, my life has a much bigger purpose, and I have a home, and I'm very much so protected and very much so guided. And this is for a reason. I may not know the reason now. That was a revelation that I had. And then getting into the space where like, no, I'm responsible to add value to other people and to the world around me. I think that was the switch that changed it for me. I think that I found a happy that I had never had, even where I was before all these things occurred. I found a level of what is the word I want to use? I just felt purposeful. I felt purposeful, and I felt very God-led, and that brought me a lot of solace and happiness. And I mean, after that, I went back to school. The reason that I went back to school wasn't because I just wanted to, although I was always very smart. the real reason that I went back to college was because I sat down one day and I'm like, oh my God, I have this child. One day he's going to go to school and one day they're going to have a career day. And I do not have a career. Let me go back to school. And I went back to college. That's literally the sole reason that I went back to school.
Your mama jokes inspired this mom. I'm just
like, your mama ain't got no career. Your mama a waitress. There's nothing wrong with mamas being waitresses. Them mamas probably make more money than me. But I'm like, I want to have a career. Like, let me have a career. I didn't want to go to career day. Like, I'm a cocktail server. Nothing wrong with being a cocktail server. If somebody want to hire me to be a bottle girl tomorrow, I'm pulling up with sparklers and everything. But I wanted a career. And I wanted my son to be proud. I wanted him to, I didn't want to have to change my schedule or him to have to go stay with my parents some nights because I had to go to work at 5 a.m. like my mom had to. My mom didn't go to college. She did the best that she could, but I'm like, she set things up for me so that I don't have to do that. So the foundation was laid for me to have a better life. So I wanted to have a better life, and I wanted to lay a foundation for my son to have an even better life.
That's deep. So where did you go to school? How did you go about the selection?
Yeah, I was just trying to go wherever. When I first started, I went to Oakland Community College.
OCC.
Okay. Yep, I went to OCC. And I went there for a bit, and I left OCC, and I actually ended up moving to Ann Arbor for a little bit.
Okay.
And I went to Washtenaw Community College, and I got an associate's degree from Washtenaw Community College, and I transferred from there to U of M Dearborn.
Okay.
And I got a degree in behavioral science from U of M Dearborn.
Interesting. What led you to behavioral science?
What led me to behavioral science was a few things. I find it very intriguing, the interworkings and relatedness of people and the way that our systems in society function. So you think government, you think education system, you think our economic structure. All of these things are influenced by people, but then people are influenced by the systems. It's very cyclical. So
were you always kind of interested in this? Or
no.
did college kind of like highlight like, oh, I was always this person?
No, I don't think I was always this person. I think I became this person.
Okay.
I think I was just telling a friend this a few days ago. I think and this is separate, but by the time I'm ready to sit back and relax in life and retire, I probably will be 100, but I will have lived 1,000 lives.
Okay.
Like, I will have probably been so many different versions of myself.
You gonna be like your uncle. Well, you got a couple other things before catching up with your uncle. You got to live overseas.
Oh yeah, I don't know. And I want to live overseas. If I didn't have a school age child, I probably would. You
gotta have a family across the country.
Well, I ain't gonna be doing all that now. It's a little different for a woman. Somebody gonna know you got some more kids.
Serve a tour duty.
But I mean, I'm sure that there were elements of this that existed within me, but they were dormant. But I found it really intriguing. And so I think I realized that this was both sociology and psychology, but there was a lot of historical context that bled into all these things. And so my associate's degree is in sociology. And I was explaining to a counselor when I was applying for U of M Dearborn, like, these things that I have interest in. I'm like, I want to go to law school. I want to do all these things. I'm like, I want to go to school for sociology, but I want to understand how people think as they influence the systems, but I also want to deeply understand how the systems influence the people. And this sounds a little bit crazy, but there's really a method to all of it. And it really is, it is explainable. And she's like, well, that sounds like behavioral science because it's a mix of anthropology, which you get the historical context from way back before. Then you get a little bit of the psychology and sociology and kind of woven in together. And so that was why I went to school for behavioral science.
And that's deep. And as so like a snapshot to another interview that a lot of people like, April from Good Cakes and Bakes. And I love Good Cakes and Bakes.
Shout out.
I'm going to be going there like next week. But and she talks about like the layout and the design of how, and she was like, I paid this consultant a lot of money, but she laid everything out where people walk in a certain way and look at things. So I'm the nerd in marketing. So that naturally, but when I say that, it's more the conditioning and how people behave.
Yes.
Because it's just ways you set things up and we don't really pay attention to the design of certain things. And it just, usually triggers behaviors of
Yeah.
masses.
Yeah.
Like you kind of know before you walk into, before Ford Field was built, people knew, oh, this is probably the main entry door because it's just ways and design, and this is where architecture, but a lot of behavioral science goes into this.
It does.
It lays out layouts and design and things like that. Like it's reasons why you have so much landscaping on most college campuses, because that conveys a different message to you and different. Well, even for homes, like the more of the more grass you got in front of your house says a different message.
Yeah, it does.
Then if
and we believe different things based off those messages.
Yes.
But that is really interesting. So I have a friend, colleague, Alex Johnson, and what she does is focus on like the design of space, civic and city spaces, and like how they're designed and how they interact with the humans who are in those spaces. And it's really all quite fascinating.
You must meet this friend. Continue.
No, you have to meet Alex. She is probably one of the most brilliant people I know. But yeah, so that was why I went to school for behavioral science. And my plan after undergrad was actually to go to law school. And the reason that I wanted to go to law school, and I actually do still plan to go to law school, I just got to get to a place in life where I can either be prepared to commit several years of my life to part-time law school, or like be financially stable enough to just go to school. So
what most people don't know is going through law school, the law school process, you're highly encouraged to not work.
Yeah, it's tough.
During it, so you can interpret the cases. I'm knowing more about attorneys because a lot of my clients, I have a lot of attorney clients. I like attorneys. They think, as Ty Russell Perkins always say, like we see the world as they see the world differently because they're exercising different critical thinking. So you can't present information to most attorneys, and that's what I think the dauntingness is of basically looking at information and exploring more angles than the average person would think of how to interpret this information,
and what
no matter
questions to
what
ask.
The information is. Okay, what is a question? What and why is this a question?
Right.
Things like that. It can drill down, like it can almost become daunting, but your mind starts shifting, and through that process, I think the stronger attorneys, it can be daunting because I know for me at least. That's why I like doing multiple things. If you're still working a regular job and you're in regular job mind,
you don't expand.
Then turn
your
that off
intellectual
and then go
space.
straight into like lawyer mind. You'll be in like some Zoom meeting, like, all right, what I'm thinking is, and then people just start looking at you like, why are you debating with me?
You know what though? What's really, really funny is that my son is naturally highly analytical. It's almost hard to have a conversation. If you say, I'm looking at this clock right now, it says 5 o'clock. If that clock said 5:01 and you asked me what time it was and I said 5 o'clock and my son saw it, he'd be like, it's 5:01. Like he's so precise, analytical. He does not see gray, very black and white, very regimented person. And he's the person that asks the questions that you get to different understandings. And this is just who he is and how he's always been. It's really, really interesting. And he does debate. And he is a great debater. He did a debate program over the summer. And he was the youngest debater in the program, but he won, I think it was 84% of his debates.
Power.
Yeah, he's like, I'm bigging him up because he's my baby, and I might be a little biased, but he is very much so in this space of thinking. But no.
But I like it because, as I always say, like strengthening and this is the other thing about behavioral science or understanding people, functions, masses. Like, I'm always going to say strengthen your critical thinking skills. You have to exercise your critical thinking skills.
Absolutely. It's a muscle.
And if you don't, then you're going to just start interpreting information as it's given to you. So the tough thing is if too many people, like if everyone thought like lawyers, then it would be hard to convince people
you
to
can't even
do
have a
anything.
proper conversation. Like, dang, can we just, I just was trying to see where you wanted to go to dinner. Like, do we have to do this?
Exactly. So like sometimes it can be difficult, but still strengthening that and knowing even when the discernment of knowing when to turn on, when to turn it off comes into play as well. Sometimes you know, like me, if I take my little cousins to Cedar Point, I got to kind of take critical thinking and just throw that to the side because I'm at Cedar Point.
Just have some fun.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to enjoy it.
Think critically about which ride you want to go on first. Like, you don't have to always be so critical. But no, so my goal was to go to law school. And part of the reason that I wanted to go to law school was because I wanted to change the way that our education system is designed, because it's highly inefficient and it's not designed for kids from lower income communities to have access to high quality education, which then takes them down this pathway of limited access to job opportunities. It doesn't provide them with the courage and confidence to even apply for Ivy League institutions, even though they may have the natural intellectual capacity to do it. When we think about economic development, like, to me, one of the only ways to change economic trajectory for an individual to create equity is through the education system. The other part of it that I believe is through entrepreneurship, but that is the reason that I want to go to law school and still want to go to law school, is to change the way that our education system is designed from a policy lens.
And I often, I speak. It's a couple things I'm always bringing up, but education is a key classic Detroit is different point for my people that watch.
Okay.
Education, like a lot of stuff in America, is sold as a public good, but originally the origin of it was Andrew Carnegie, Van Buren, Rockefeller. You needed to transition this agricultural worker into an industrial worker.
Yep.
And really, this is the racial lens of it. You had to transition a lot of these white, uneducated workers that still lacked a lot of agricultural skills as well into industrial workers. Hence, the best way is you're going to have to learn to read. But that also is why schools, like we think of Central High School, the first public high school in America, like, I did not know that. Schools are set up like industry. Like, they're set up like a factory. The bells, the science. Because if I'm Andrew Carnegie and I'm going to give, in my philanthropy, equivalency of like $500 million to start education in America,
I'm going to do it in a way that's going to benefit my organization after the usage of the philanthropic investment. Okay.
Exactly.
It's a pipeline.
Exactly.
It's a pipeline.
Now, and that day, obviously, the sun has set on the industrial age in America, even though a lot of my Michiganders think that, jobs is coming back. I doubt it. But, it's transitioned to this information technology age. Yeah. And in this age, what success looks like, a lot of things. And not just schools, but schools are like almost like an open, it's such a big entity because schools also became, this ain't even joking. Schools became like free babysitting for a lot of people for a while. Yeah. So you could work in the industry that you were trained to be in.
And have somewhere for your children to go.
During that time.
Like at a place for 8 or 9 hours a day.
Hand in hand. Yeah. Like, as our area
It was designed to support the systems that we were designed. Like, education was designed to fill a need in industry.
Yes.
But it doesn't really work now.
No.
The way our education system is set up, it doesn't really work anymore. And it doesn't work from the lens of creating free thinkers, creating children who have opportunities that are literally limitless. That's not what it's designed for. And I wanted to change that. I still do. This is still very much so part of what I believe is like, I got like 5 things that I know I need to accomplish in life, and this is one of them. And
that's like Nobel Peace Prize.
I got a few different ways that I wish to get there, but supporting the restructuring of our education system is absolutely part of it, and it doesn't always look like policy. So that's part of it. And like I said, still plan to go to law school, still plan to advocate on behalf of policy reform as it relates to education. But I think that there are so many other pathways to provide exposure to children of like how to be creative, like how to be curious, how to develop confidence to even do those things.
Now to do that effectively, do you think you're going to have to see the stakeholder in that? And that's always the tough thing about schools, is like the consumer is the student.
Yeah.
But the stakeholders that you're selling are the parents, the administrators. And really, you kind of may need to start with the Andrew Carnegie of today.
Yeah.
Do you need to convince the people leading today's leading industries that look, by investing in the students, it will only help everything that you're doing too. Because right now, I believe a lot of these industries, and here's another one of those, exercise your critical thinking. Shout out to all of the teachers. People know I just stopped my tour duty as the president of Northwestern's Alumni Association. Shout out to Jerry Williams, class of 2004, I think. He's the president now. Jerry, hold it down. But you know, it was such a disconnect. Clearly, because COVID-19 just revealed so much of the value from top to bottom, because basically that year they basically just, you know, gave a wait. Everybody kind of was held back, so you know what?
Just
we
keep
just
it
gonna
moving.
promote everybody.
Just go
like
ahead.
They kind of dismissed, like, okay, so technically I'm gonna pass the 10th grade with maybe like a couple months worth of lessons, and you're just gonna move me to the 11th grade. So obviously,
not
whatever
prepared
from the 10th
for the next
grade
level
really
anyway.
didn't connect to the 11th grade totally. I think the people that are most interactive with the students probably have the least say in some of the functionality of it. But
which is really, really unfortunate.
I agree. How do you see on getting the other stakeholders that now I think wield more influence in things, as in my opinion, that education has become so systematic, meaning like almost like it's such a product. It's like a McDonald's.
Yes.
Like almost like if you took your 5th grade son, if you have a kid in the 5th grade in Ohio right now, and it's March 2nd, and then he flies to Florida and it's March 4th, they basically the same page, same book, same lesson
for the most part.
All on time. It don't matter that he
extreme consistency with the way that well, I'm not gonna say it's extreme consistency,
but the system is pushing that.
But the system is the system.
Yes.
And the system absolutely looks different for a child who lives in the city smack dab in the middle of Detroit versus the system for a child that lives in West Bloomfield or in Birmingham. Very, very starkly different experiences. So I will say this. I don't have all the answers. I think there's so much more research that I need to do personally. However, I will say this. My son, when he, like I said, he's actually really, really bright, very brilliant child. We did an IQ test, IQ of 130. Like, he's really, really a genius.
Wow.
But he started school at Roper, which is a private school for gifted children in Bloomfield Hills. When he went to Roper, I made $12 an hour. But I knew that I had a child who was highly intellectual, very intelligent. He thought very differently from most children that I had encountered. And I wanted to make sure I did the best that I could with that. And I didn't want to squander his natural gifts by putting him in an environment that did not support that. So sent him to Roper. I was still staying at home at my grandparents' house. Me and my little $12 job paid for my son to go to Roper. And I also used my refund checks from school. So financial aid refund checks, put him through Roper for a few years. And it was a beautiful experience. So I remember one time when Michael was really interested in prehistoric animals, because he's always just like explore different things, different concepts. He's a big researcher. He does these things on his own for fun. Such a nerd, but he's not really a nerd because he's kind of cool too. But so he was really into.
I'm a nerd. Like, I embrace nerd culture.
I do too.
Nerd culture is basically, so how I look at it, the Kari definition is basically going much further, exploring a topic, whether it be pop culture or history or something, than the average person would, because it like just captures your attention and like and feeling fulfilled by getting this information. And it's not like, oh, I'm writing a proposal, this will lead to some business, but just for your own
edification. It's just fulfilling.
Yes.
That's
it's
how
like,
he
wow,
is.
I didn't even know this would happen. This is interesting.
But that's how Michael is, and that's how he's always been. But he was really into prehistoric animals at one time, and he told his teacher. And instead of the teacher saying, oh, that's really nice, here's the book, the 5-page hard book on dinosaurs, they changed the science curriculum for the next few weeks to teach the children about prehistoric animals and the conditions that they had to live in, and how that has evolved now, because like human beings have to exist in different conditions. And it was like he was coming home with all these facts every single day. And I'm like, are you reading this? Because he just started reading. I'm like, where are you getting this information? Then the teacher tells me this. And as a final closeout to this lesson, they made a life-size replica of a woolly mammoth that is still in the school today.
That's cool.
And it was just beautiful
That's
how
cool.
he was able to take ownership of his own education experience and journey. And he transitioned from Roper to traditional public school, and totally different experience.
And let me say this too, in reference to like I had a well, my nephew went to like one of those gifted schools. I forgot the name, but like it's a couple around here. Like you got like Interlochen, Cranbrook, and usually I think some of the key differences I've noticed in them are parents are a lot more inclusive,
Yes.
and that the learning is more interactive, where students aren't looked at like almost like sometimes when I be in school, I was feeling like, okay, I am like that's the general, and I'm a cadet. Like it's way
It's
more
hierarchical.
like I'm the teacher, but you're valued as a student as much as me, if not more valued. Just
because
by
you
being
bring
a
something
student.
to this experience as well.
Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
And I think that when we think of, especially like schools, like, you know, schools in my neighborhood, like Central Northwestern and stuff, like there's so many other social dynamics that are being brought into the classroom before something like that can even start being extracted because of other things that come with the students as they wake up and just walk into school. You know, but
Yeah, it's absolutely to that point. Like there is so much that happens at home that we have to account for when we consider serving students. But what I will also say is like the dynamic of teacher and student, and like how there's this hierarchy of like the principal's at the top, then it's the teacher, and you have to respect these entities and you don't question them. That's authority. Like it wasn't like that for Michael at Roper. Like they called the teachers by their first names. Which was really a culture shock for me, because I'm like, no, you have to call everybody Miss or Mr. I wasn't raised like that. It's like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, life. And so it was different. It was a culture shock for me. But I think part of the reason that they did that is to try to level the playing field so that there is no hierarchy. Your teacher is not equal to you in intellect, but equal to you in value of humanness. And I think that shifted things for me.
So how did your son take to the public school experience?
He struggled. Because at Roper, they taught the children the way that they learned. They understood the children very holistically. Progress reports were not 2 sentences. It was like, I got 10-page reports about my son.
And that's where...
Like, they understood them deeply.
And this is also where, like, I've said this before, school was the first place that told me that I couldn't do something. Like, at home, I felt like I could do whatever. Superhero, especially like, you know, young black boy. And then Dr. Umar Johnson speaks a lot about this and other things, but some of the stuff that Dr. Umar Johnson speaks to about the education of black boys, I do think it's a lot into it. But even let me sing the praises of Jawaza Kanjufu more so, because he's been doing so much of that. And even rest in peace Kofi Kenyatta, and so many that have done that work, Mommy Imani Humphrey. But black boys respond like it's just a different energy, where school was one of those places like, sit down, be quiet. Like almost all my natural inquisition, why are we doing this in the first place? Why am I learning division?
Tell me the reason. Help me understand. Explain it to me.
And labeled as bad. And it's usually...
but it's just asking questions, wanting to understand. Children are naturally inquisitive. And I think our school environment, our school systems, they shun the natural inquisitive nature of children. Children are not given an environment to be curious. Children are not given an environment to be creative. You have to be curious to end up to become creative. And I think children are born with a natural confidence and, like I said, this natural curiosity that we tell them that that's not okay. And it makes them not sure of what to ask, or when it's okay to ask, or when it's okay to push back. And I mean, Michael might get in trouble for it sometimes at school, but I want you to ask. So if they got a problem, they can call me. If you ask help, you can ask anything respectfully. If your teacher is telling you a fact or a piece of information or a way to do something, you should absolutely feel empowered to ask why.
So I have this question in reference to that, because culturally, this always is the battle too. And some of this, as people say, like some of the stuff, I'm a big advocate for not just black folk, but also old black folk too. So, and I think right now it's like a arc in media and marketing. I see it, especially in entertainment, that's looking back at the ways of our grandparents and great grandparents and saying, "Oh, that was wrong. You shouldn't have done things." Where it's like, no, some of that stuff was survival.
Some of it was valid
and
too.
It was needed. But like, here's the classic one: a child should know a child's place. And this sometimes can lead to some of the most. If for my non-black viewers, this can lead to some of the most interesting and colorful debates for family black gatherings during like Thanksgiving, because you may have a child that, as they say, don't know a child's place, that does something out of a child's place,
and neither did I.
That will have an exchange with the elder that feels differently, and this, but that discussion and that point, which you want to honor the elder, you want to honor the child, you want to honor the parent in the mix of this too. What's your take on this in the culture? Because some things we're married to and we don't even know the context. Hence, you got to ask to know the context. And it's just out of habit as opposed to out of context and understanding,
So my philosophy is you respect all people because people are deserving of respect, but you are deserving of respect because you are a person too. So I am not going to stand for someone being disrespectful to my son because that's not the behavior that I want him to model. Now, you telling him something to do, that's one thing. But I think you have to learn to delicately balance this, and it is a push and pull. And it is challenging, but I want Michael to be able to ask questions respectfully. So if you disagree with something, it's okay to disagree with that. Now, if my grandma is telling you to pick that paper up off the floor, it don't matter why. Pick the paper up off the floor. Some directives are directives, and just do it. But if someone is telling you to do math a certain way or to do, to develop a philosophy that is their own and you don't understand it, well, you will never understand it unless you ask questions. And for me, it's like requiring him to learn respect and understand that he is a contributor to the world and not just a bystander or not a receiver only. You contribute to the world around you, and you can do that positively or negatively. But you have to realize that if you do something that is negative or ill-received, you're going to have consequences to that. So if you say something to someone who is an elder or who is a peer that is not respectful in nature, you got to expect that you're going to have to deal with the consequence of that. So for me, I guess to answer the question of like, how do I navigate that in family settings? I think everybody in my family at this point knows we think a little different. We're going to do things a little bit differently, but we're not going to be disrespectful. But I want Michael to challenge and ask questions, but to do it in a way that is respectful of all people and their humanness. And I expect him to have an expectation. He deserves an expectation of respect as well.
So as these cultural shifts do happen in our community, and this is just really an open-ended question to you directly, like how much is the onus on us to like, I guess, I don't even know if I want to use the term teach, but provide context to our elders that like, yo, Dad, this is how things happen. Like I remember one time me and my dad were like, we were in the car a couple years ago. He used the word retarded. And I was like, we don't use the word retarded anymore. You know what I'm saying? And then he was like, why? And then I'm like, well, technically because the connotation that it means, even though I think whatever new word, probably 10 years from now, we won't use that. And I'll be my dad in the car, But like, how much does the onus fall on me to
give the context to family? Well, I think for me, providing context to my family has not been so much of a requirement simply because Michael's a respectful kid. So it's we still do yes, ma'am. We still do no, ma'am. I still require that if someone is telling you something, if someone is giving you a directive, like I said, if an old person is like, pick that paper up, you pick it up. Now, if somebody is telling you to hit somebody else with it, well, now it's time to ask a question. That's where the critical thinking comes into play. You know what I mean? Sometimes you might need to throw the paper and hit somebody. What if it's a fire and they tell you to throw it to, whatever. I don't know. So that's where critical thinking comes into play. Like, and he knows when it's time to ask a question, how to do it respectfully. So it's like if someone used a term that was not appropriate, he would take a step back and he does his research. So he has the
capacity,
the
to deliver.
vocabulary to express why something is or is not appropriate. But I think part of it is just because I talk to Michael like a grown-up. I've never talked to him like a child. I've never, hey, baby boy, goo goo gaga, you undo. No, you are a young person, but you're a person
He was
first.
potty training. It was like, hey, man, you got to get this. You got to work this out, my G.
Do you want to have pee on you? Like, is this the experience you want for yourself? You don't want better for yourself?
2-year-old.
But he got it, and this is just the life we live. This is the life we live.
Look, my Jeep, we ain't doing that.
But, I mean, and I think part of it, too, like I said, I don't have no siblings. So Michael was like my little brother and my son wrapped into one. This is just an experiment, okay? The experiment might fail at the end. But, I mean, I'm teaching him how to be respectful to people.
I got you.
But he's also really mature, very similar to me, where he knows how to engage in these very adult spaces that children regularly are not part of. Like, he goes to networking events with me. He went to college with me. Michael started going to college with me when he was 2. He would be sitting in class with me with his little snack pack, his little iPad or coloring pad. Nobody knew he was there most of the time. I had some professors that would bring work for him, too, and he would do it.
Cool.
And this is just his experience. So I know that it's unique, but I believe that it can still be accomplished by pushing children to think critically and ask questions, teaching them how to be respectful of other people and how to ask hard questions, and to know when a question is something that might be a little bit uncomfortable for other people because you understand the social setting around you. And to also know how to respect himself. And so I think that perception changes the way that people respond. So if you know that a child is naturally respectful or is generally a respectful child and you're telling them something to do and it's clear that they don't understand it, then they ask you in a respectful way to explain it to them, I think perception matters. And I think that's why presentation and like how you engage with people is important. Like, it is important to be the child that opens the door for people when you see them coming. It is important to be the child, to me, to say yes, ma'am, to say no, ma'am, to show respect all the time. So when there comes a place where your respect might be in question because you're asking a question of an adult that might be seen as challenging authority, they know the context of the person that you are, and they accept it as you asking a question as opposed to you being disrespectful, challenging authority. I think we have to push to have curious kids. Sometimes you can't always have a child that is extremely curious, wanting to push the buttons and be a critical thinker, but also a child that is meek and consistently respectful. Sometimes you're going to have to push a little bit of a button. Yeah. Maybe not push the whole thing. Don't push the button all the way down, but you're going to have to tap it a little bit if you need to get to an answer that you don't have. Yeah. And you can't always do and be both. Sometimes you got to be a little radical, and it's okay, but you have to learn how to be respectful of other people in their space. And when you understand or when you see that someone is receiving something in a way that's not how you intended for it to be received, you say, wait, I didn't mean it like that. Or you learn when to shut your mouth. Like, kids got to learn how to shut their mouth sometimes, just like we as grown-ups know how to shut our mouths. Like, I know I can't call my boss acting crazy because I don't agree with something she said. Like, I can't do that. That's not how things go. So you have to learn when to push, when to pull, and children need to learn these things too. And I believe that we believe that children are not capable of doing the magnitude of things that they are wildly, absolutely capable of doing. Their abilities are so far beyond what we expect of them. And so because we have low expectations, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I'd agree. I mean, it's back to that behavioral science. Like, you know, like what did they say? Like if you have 25 languages around that kid from infancy to like 4, you're going to end up with a kid that's speaking 25 different languages. Whereas
not my kid. I wish.
Now it's like, you know, I mean, you put those 25 languages around adults for 25 years, it'll be like,
and they
what?
still going to be challenged with it, Because kids are so intellectually malleable. Yeah. So malleable. And I think for me, that's even part of my beliefs around education is that I think sometimes, like with Michael, and people would ask me, what did you do to make him so smart? I'm like, I didn't do nothing. I told him he was smart, and he believed me. And then I gave him tools that supported a kid that was smart. And guess what? He picked him up.
That's deep.
It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. He knows that he is supported to be curious. He knows that he's supported to be a little creative, maybe do a little bit of do something wild, and maybe it's not a good idea, but sometimes you got to get through 100 wild ideas to get to a good one. He is confident in himself, and that is very intentional. And I believe that all children can pick up these same qualities when we are intentional about providing opportunities for them to do so. So my son actually started a business when he was 6 called Michael's Genius Lab. He's like, oh, I'm so into science. And he was like really into science, like at a high level, chemistry, understood deep chemistry concepts. He still does.
He sound like Urkel, not to make a joke back to the nerd thing, but
he a little cute brown little thing too, maybe a little Urkel-ish. I got pictures of him in his little lab coat and everything. He won't wear them now, but
Mom, why you fronting on me?
It was called Michael's Genius Lab. He wanted to make these kids chemistry kits.
That's cool.
Launched it at a children's business fair. He made $800 in one day.
That's big.
He won 3 awards. Two awards. There were 3 awards, 3 different award categories. He won 2. That's big. And then he was offered a scholarship to a coding camp. So he started this, and it was actually when I was finishing college. So. A 6-year-old started a business. That's the mama starting a business for real.
Is.
The mama, the operations, the baby is the brains.
Sure is.
But so we started this together, and that's when he was at Roper.
A pet too, but continue.
Right, and we ain't got no pets. That's exactly why, because I don't want to do the pet thing. But then this is when he was at Roper. So it was just a lot for me to balance, like this business with this child of mine, and like. Making him actually help, and like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a lot, plus trying to finish school. Yeah. So we really didn't do anything with it.
But the experience was there. And that's really what it's about. It's experience and exposure at a young age. And that, as you say, that platform to build that confidence of like, it can be done. Yeah. I did this before. I've seen this before.
And I can do it again if I want to.
I'm familiar with it. So yes, I know the process. And obviously, as he does a business at like 16 or 26, it'll be different. It's not mom gonna be more in an advisory.
In the back seats.
In an
you
advisory
got this.
Position. Exactly. So it's like, you seeing all the other stuff mom had to do,
Yeah.
And it becomes revealing. But that's powerful. I like all of this. And it's really, I like your organic approach to this. Is deep and eye-opening. So you're giving some game. I'm going to definitely chop this up.
I'm trying to drop
some
a
game
little,
in there,
a little bit.
For people. So like, you're definitely giving that. As we get closer to a close, I got to bring you back too.
Okay.
So
Can I finish though? Can I finish the story?
Keep talking. I do.
Let me just finish this quick little Michael's Genius Lab story. So when he transitioned from Roper to public school, like I said, it was a hard transition for both him and for me, because I'm like, wait, what? This is what? He got to sit in his seat? Like, what? Like, I ain't go to school before. Like, I just don't have no idea how real school works. But it brought me back to the question of, why can't all kids experience this gifted educational environment? Because a lot of kids in gifted education environments literally just have parents that told their kids that they were, or that want their kids to be gifted, or took them to do an IQ test. You're going to pay $500 for an IQ test. They're going to tell you your kid's smart. You know what I mean? Like, these are people who are investing in their children.
But I'm going to tell you, in my life journeys of jobs, one of my jobs was I worked at Pizza Hut as a delivery driver, and I was at the Dearborn Heights Pizza Hut, and we delivered to 4 different schools. One of them was one of those gifted schools, and it was consistent every Friday. The amount of effort that I saw, like, it was almost like school to school to school. So you had just regular, like, Dearborn Fortson, you had the Dearborn Heights School, then this gifted school, and then this other Catholic school. So, like, it was like every level up. Like, regular school, you have like 3 moms. The other school, you have like maybe 6 moms. The other school, you have like 9. By the time we got to the gifted school, every student's mother was there. Yeah. Like, they coordinated so much of the events, the activities, the extracurricular. Like, the mom's jobs were being the mom at the school with their child. So, like, I would walk into, like, most times I would walk into, like, some stressed out administrator, like to a regular
trying
school,
to get these
like,
pizzas.
yeah, man, just put them wherever.
Yeah.
The moms would be like, all right, we needed them sliced this way. They will open up every pizza box, and there would be like 30 of them, making sure that they were sliced the right way and all of that stuff. No, we needed these, like, because they like them cut in squares and stuff. I'm like, this is excessive. But they tip better. It was like so intentional where these moms invested time with their kid in their school journey.
Yeah.
As like certain people would look at full-time work, not like I'm going to take today off and go on the field trip. Like, I'm here Monday through Saturday.
I'm making an investment. I'm making a contribution to my family by being here with my child.
And it's about 100 of us. It's a movie that's kind of jokingly about it. That Bad Moms movie, with like Jada Pinkett's in it. The lady from That 70s Show is like the main character.
Yes.
Like, so if you've ever seen this,
with the red hair.
Yes. So like this whole, like, it's a culture. And that's what I noticed. It's the parent involvement, and usually, and there was a couple dads where I think the mom worked and the dad was like Mr. Mom or whatever, or was present that day. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. You know, he may be an entrepreneur. He may work night. Who knows?
That may just be independently wealthy. He didn't have to go to work that day.
Who knows? But they would be there consistently, all the time at the school, as if like. It was a requirement for them. Was the parent dealt with the parents, and so when I look at communities like mine, and I think of the stress that most of the parents are just making ends meet.
Yes, you don't even have the opportunity to do all that with your kids when you are working you're the only parent in the home maybe, and you're working to provide, and all you can do is the bare minimum. You don't have this, like, think about the affluence and privilege it takes to even be at your kid's school all the time like that.
All day.
Like, that's not something that most people can do.
No.
But so but back to what I was saying about Michael is like, with this gifted environment, a lot of it was just parents who wanted to push their children and wanted to support them by providing them with an environment and telling them it's okay to be creative, telling them it's okay to be curious, building confidence in their kids, being involved, and providing them with high-level, rigorous information. That is replicable. So Michael's Genius Lab transitioned actually into the Genius Lab. And Michael and I facilitated classes. We had a partnership with a charter school where we would go in and facilitate these classes, primarily based around science and STEM concepts.
Oh, that means he got a lot of confidence because kids
he does.
To interact
Michael's
with
been
other
asked to do public speaking and all kinds of stuff.
Kids to interact with other kids. Usually kids get around other kids and get quiet and don't want to say nothing.
No, he be feeling like he doing something. Michael is a whole character. I really wish I'd have brought him, but his ego is like through the roof. He's very like.
I look forward to meeting the little homie.
But so we would facilitate these classes together, and the vision was to create an environment that helps children identify their own intrinsic genius. Everyone has their own thing. There are things that you can do well naturally that just come to you. It's apparent. It's easy. I could never do it. Or I can try, but I'm going to have to study. It's going to take me a lot. People just have intrinsic gifts. Intrinsic genius is what is yours. Nobody can take it away. Nobody gave it to you but God. It's just there. And so the premise behind the Genius Lab was to help children identify and cultivate their own intrinsic genius through facilitated and intentional curiosity, creativity, and confidence building. And by providing them with this what most people would think is like difficult information, but in a way that's very digestible for a young mind, while also introducing more difficult concepts along the way, difficult words, hard words to say. Like, we did a workshop on sublimation, and it's like, well, how do you say that? And what is that? And like, it was a thing. And so I don't have a background in education or science. I had to learn these things to be able to teach it. Long-term vision, the Genius Lab is still very much so part of like my vision for changing the way that we think about education, the way that we think about giftedness, and the way that we provide academic and intellectual experiences for children. So that is the final piece to the story. Is like it transitioned a little bit, and that is part of like I said, I got 5 things that I really know I need to do before I die. And that's one of them, is like fully maximizing this vision of the Genius Lab and bringing high quality academic experiences to children.
I look forward to meeting him. And we're going to do something.
Yeah, you got to meet my baby.
Summer.
You something.
It sounds like that may be a summer activity for my neighborhood.
Yes, we are down. We are down for it.
So yes, we gonna figure that out.
Yeah.
So that would be dope. It's so many other stories that I want to get to. We're gonna bring you back.
So many. I'm sorry.
This was fun.
I'm a chatty Cathy.
Cool. No, this was fun. I do have our classic Detroit is different questions.
Okay.
That I run by everybody.
Okay.
So, very first car, year, make, and model, and year you got it.
96 Toyota Camry, black.
Okay.
And the sunroof didn't work, so it would leak water in the car.
Hey, man,
I got it in.
You felt the elements all the time.
Yeah, man, I wanted that sunroof to work so bad. I wanted to stick my head out in Belle Isle too. Like I wanted to have fun. But God was like, "Nah, sis, you already trying to be rebellious. It's a no."
You could have ghost rolled the whip.
Right.
You could have did the Oakland
it
thing.
was a no in my '96 Toyota Camry. That was a good car.
What year you get it?
2006.
Okay.
So,
it
yep,
was
I was
a decade
16.
in.
No, actually, I got it in 2005 because I was 15.
Okay.
I didn't have my license yet, but it was my grandma's car, and my papa gave it to me. And my mom bought it, which I think she bought it for like $500 or something. My papa wanted to give it to me, but she's like, I'm gonna buy my baby her own first car. But so yes, 96 Toyota Camry.
Okay. Where's the first place you went when you got it?
I think to Royal Oak. This is when I was like trying to think I was doing something different, like hanging out in Royal Oak. Okay. Because that's when nobody really hung out in Royal Oak back then. And so I think I drove to Royal Oak and like went to dinner or something. I don't know.
06. that was when Memphis Smoke was over there. I miss Memphis Smoke. But you'd have been in Memphis Smoke. You'd have probably been at like, I don't know, Mr. B's or something like that.
Well, I was a kid, so it was more of where do we go? Like Mongolian Barbecue. That was the spot.
There we
Mongolian
go.
Barbecue used to be on Main Street. Yeah. Man, Mongolian Barbecue was good.
No. I was just having this talk with
you
know the homie
barbecue?
Josh out. I gotta know how to cook, and then it's like I'm eating with my eyes. It's like I'm like, yeah, put some eggs, and then you.
I mean,
eat
they
like,
had the little menu card.
Disgusting.
I mean, you can't cook. They had the little menu cards though that gives you some instruction. It help you along the way a little bit. Anytime you put sauce on something, if the sauce is good, the food gonna be good.
I fit the definitely some of that arc of the stereotype of black man that's not looking at the instructions first. It's like,
man, I used to love Mongolian barbecue.
I even get IKEA stuff like, ain't nobody looking at that instruction. Where them instructions at? But yeah,
Side note, I feel very powerful putting IKEA stuff together because I'm like, I got this. I'm my own woman. I'm independent. No. IKEA had you misjudging yourself and your abilities now.
Ruining some Mongolian barbecue. It's like, yeah, man, put some chicken, put some
yeah, that was my spot back then. That was my spot.
Okay. That was definitely the vibes. The Mongolian barbecue.
15, 16, 17-year-old Myka, that was my spot.
No, I'm saying it was the vibes for the, like 06, 07 Mongolian barbecue Royal Oak. That was like, it was there, you know. All right. You are the DJ at the end of the Detroit fireworks.
Ooh.
It's Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 3 songs. What songs you playing?
Dang. I'm not really good with the music. What am I going to play? Oh, my God. This is embarrassing.
All right. If you're not good, then we just going to make it one. What song you playing?
Oh, who would have thought this is going to be the question? I wish you would have provided me these questions in advance. I would have came with something fire. I feel like I am feeling stumped right now. What song would I play? I will probably play Dreams and Nightmares because I wouldn't want the party to end. I want to keep it going. Okay. So let's get everybody hype again.
Okay. All right. So at that point, last question. You get to rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Ooh. I would probably say, dang, there's already a street named after him. But if there weren't, I would probably say Berry Gordy. And the reason that I say that is because I find it so fascinating that Berry Gordy started Motown using a loan from his family. And I think the reason I find that fascinating is because we don't really look at this concept of like group economics. And that's exactly what that was. Family putting money into a pot for someone to borrow it to do a thing at a given time, whenever that thing comes, whenever that time comes. And when I think about economic growth and economic development and how we as a group of people, specifically Black people, can lead ourselves to economic equity, I think a big part of it will be developing a sense of I think right now we really look at things from like a more individualistic perspective, but being much more collectivist and putting resources together to support each other is really a bit different for Black culture. And for me, that is a very poignant example of why that is so important, and a super great example of how it can be a light lift, but something that can be an absolute game changer.
That's deep. So, in knowing a little bit more in the story from what's given in great autobiography, To Be Loved by Berry Gordy, it's definitely his story, as they say. But I mean, that's how autobiography is supposed to be. If I write the Kari story, it's definitely going to be from my angle.
Okay, it's going to sound real good.
With that, from that, it was more than just the money, too. Like, the family also committed themselves to helping Tamla and Motown get their origins, too. So, like, it was the funding plus the functionality.
Yeah.
Because I can give you $1,000, but if I give you $1,000 and some
with no guidance,
and some guidance, and then also some references, some, you know, like the design, as much as they say, like, you know, Berry Gordy worked in the worked in the plant for 2 days, and then after he worked in the the Berry Gordy story goes, he wrote To Be Loved with Jackie Wilson, becomes the #1 song in the nation. He sees his check, and he's like, okay, I'm not in the right part of this business, you know. Then it's like, okay, let me go on and do the classic thing. Let me do the classic Detroit thing. Works the line, sees the functionality there. Like, if I can make this a system into music, what would it look like? Gets his family to buy into this dream. So some of this is from the book, and some of this is also from shout out to Davis brothers, Will and Don Davis. Rest in peace, Don Davis. They grew up like around the corner, but Will is somebody that, you know, we talk a couple of times, but he had a system, but his family also saw them more than just the vision. It was the buy-in. Very similar to the story you just shared about your son.
Yeah.
Like, so it's the capital and also the access and also the commitment. And sometimes the commitment can just be, I'm helping out my brother. I'm helping out my cousin. They got a hot dog cart. They got they just started a bounce house business or whatever. Like,
other cultures do it all the time.
That buy-in is big, you know, and being
support.
present and not just looking at it like, oh, here we go again. It's like, it takes like that. In entrepreneurship, we stumble our way through to where things are. Nobody's business ever is the business that it ends up being from, you know, like at step one. The reason that in Highland Park is Model T Plaza for Ford's car, the Model T that basically blossomed so much in this industry, is because he went through Model A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
And there you got T.
To get to Model T.
You got to fail sometimes.
Yeah.
And you got to be okay with that. But I for me, it's just like that is, and yes, you are absolutely right. It's so much more than money. And I think sometimes even with small businesses that we see now, and I know you say we got to wrap up. I got you here all day.
We there.
But it's so much more than money. It's the systems. It's the support. It's like, you can't do these things on an island. You have to have other people around pushing you, guiding you, introducing you to another perspective, because all you have is what's inside of your brain. But if mine plus yours come together, well, we got something that could be magic. Like, who really knows?
And now I'm about to get on my soapbox. It's also the fact that you need a little juice. And when I say that, I'm speaking from the colloquialism of hip-hop or the street, however you look at it. Juice meaning you need to have influence to be respected, or your money will be taken. One of the first things that I learned in the music, and now the first profanity of today's show comes out. Tyrone Bradley, like, the music business ain't got shit to do with music. Tyrone was correct.
No,
but
it don't.
Also, the music business, you have to be respected. If not, it's people in business for your business, meaning they're in business to get your money. And they have no, I don't want to say they could care less whether you fail or don't, but in the grand scheme of things, you're going to feel like that. So you kind of need to be working with a person where their works say something about who you are, because it's like, okay, if I let things go left for a project with your son, then that's going to put me going left with you.
Yeah.
And you have your business connections. And sometimes it's not like, it's not Goodfellas. It ain't a gangster movie. Sometimes it's just a person.
You never know with me. I might have to pull up. You never know who I got.
But sometimes it's just a person.
No, really. Yeah. No, you're right.
Just giving a bad reference.
Yep.
Sometimes
not
a bad
advocating
reference,
on not being a champion for you. Saying that one thing that's negative about you to the wrong person who will then say it to the next wrong person, and people don't want to do business with you.
Exactly.
Now you blackballed.
You blackballed just because you didn't have that going as well. Or furthermore, you began the interview saying fantastic. So then I ask you about somebody, because it's sometimes not even what you say, it's what you don't say.
Yeah.
I say, hey, you know this person, John Doe? You ever done business with John Doe? It's like, yeah, I know John Doe. And then it's like, oh. Somebody like me, I'm interpreting.
That means something
usually, else. Myka's going to say, oh, I did this, that,
She ain't say nothing good.
She left it face value. So that says to me everything I need to know without her saying anything else. So you burned
Which is so messed up,
her son. Yeah. You burned her son 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's going to have an impact on you doing some business with me right now.
Yeah.
Just because she didn't add any extra sauce like she usually would, edify, speak highly, and all of that.
Yeah.
But she kept it real plain. Like, yeah, I know. Because usually these phone calls, as I'm learning with the proposals and all of this stuff, is my business is growing. I'm glad for that. But it's a lot of stuff that happens right here. It's a lot of stuff where things happen. People call me ahead and be like, hey, put this, that, the other. What about this person? Who you going to have on the team? Why you going to have them on the team? What resources you got going? Hence, if you get the money and that's the only asset you have that you're bringing to the table, nothing else really speaks. Because basically I would ask her, I'd be like, all right, so I'm willing to do some business with them. What's the deal with them? The first thing she's going to tell Myka's going to say, well, all I know is they got a lot of money. So now my mind is only oriented in getting money.
Yep.
If it was a big opportunity, it'd be like, all right, look, I'm going to tell you straight up. They doing podcasts out in Houston, and I think it's some big opportunity. They've done this, they've done that. I think it fits with your business. It's a good match. It'll be so many other things and attributes
the door.
that make the connection. But if the only thing that's making the connection is money, you can only expect it to get...
That's not enough. It's not enough.
Yes.
It's not enough.
Yep. You almost have to look at it like, if money was off the table, would you work with this person?
Yep.
And is it a good fit? Does this fit together? Does it, does it have the value where it can match? And it's a tough thing to say, because the sad part of it is the person you want to work with is probably getting those money opportunities from a bunch of other people.
Yeah. You know what? I had an old mentor tell me something, and it never left me. People do business with people that they like.
Yeah.
You have to be likable. You have to be likable to be liked.
Yeah.
And it's not just about money. It's not even always about intelligence. It's often about, do I like this person? Is this a good person that I would like to work with or do business with?
I mean, even when I think of team members and stuff, like I'd have some, because I do like interesting people, creatives and stuff like that. But like, I always use this analogy when I talk to my kid sister about like her journey and growth. And she's phenomenal. Like, I'm surprised she's gotten here. But like, she was one of those people that, like me, and you've been in this position before, where you're a younger person managing older people. And I told her, I was like, you're going to have to walk this delicately, because you got to be firm, but you also got to honor this, back to, I like the term you use, humanness. You got to honor the fact that these people are more experienced. They're older than you. And you can't just walk in like boss hog, and you may say verbatim, just due to back to likability, perception, how we see things. Like, you could say the exact same thing that a 75-year-old white guy says, but it's interpreted differently.
Yeah.
So you may have to, what I call is, be the donuts person, meaning it's the most fluffer person ever, but you're the person that brings donuts on Monday, and they don't even necessarily know how much you do in the team, but everybody in the office knows,
oh, she's nice. And they only assume you're nice because you brought them donuts. Them could be day-old donuts.
it's some of the most, like, when you see people that work those systems and know that, like, and when you know the right ways to put a thank you card, if you're that person, like my mom used to do stuff like that. When you write down, when you have clients and write down, the people connected to them, their birthdays, what's coming up, and and you send some flowers,
thank you cards. So that goes a long
You show up with,
way.
somebody in their family passes. You show up at the family hour and stuff like that. Like, those little small touches can be the difference of getting you in the room and being out the room. And
the human element. Yes. It's the human element. And people want to be seen as human beings before they want to be seen as what they have or their titles or what they can do for you. Nobody wants to be commoditized. Like, nobody wants to be looked at as a commodity or something to use or take advantage of. People want to be honored for who they are as people first. I want to be seen. I want to be valued. I want to be respected as a person. Like, not as Myka from this company or Myka that does that for work or Myka with this or Myka. What about just Myka? I just want to be Myka. You don't like me? What about me?
And this is what makes things so interesting in our community, and why some of the interviews are where they
don't go that way
because
first.
Our orientation still sometimes has the hustle mentality of when you're that people we say, oh, that's the plug.
Yep. Hence, this is the person that has this or that can do that. You don't even know nothing about this person.
Yes.
You don't even ask them how their day was. I looked at a post on Facebook a week or so ago where this girl is like, which I'm sure you know, Brittany Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I went to high school with her. But anyways, she's like, people got the nerve to ask for a favor without even asking how I'm doing. Like, how do you, can we honor the person? Like, let's just honor people's existence as humans. Like, I'm a human before anything. And I think for me, I try to enter spaces honoring people's humanness first. Because if you go into it like, what position does this person play in whatever this transaction or engagement is, or what can I get from them, or what can they do for me, you're not going to get very far, for one. And for two, even if you do get far in that encounter, like, what about the next encounter where you need them and they don't need you, or where they're at a different space than you and you didn't honor them as a human, and they remember that. They remember that you didn't treat them well.
I would say it becomes, and this is one of those things about, like, when we look at life too, life becomes more transactional for you. Like, so like I look at, I love comedy. It's probably one of my favorite art forms. So it may be my favorite art form. Love hip hop a lot too, but probably comedy now as I grow older. I look at the story of like a Dick Gregory versus a Bill Cosby. This is usually the analogy. So when I think of the moves I make, I like the story of Dick Gregory. I never will take the sacrifices he took, but I don't know if most people know, like, Dick Gregory was already a millionaire, and like on a like the trajectory of Dick Gregory's story in life was the successes we attribute to pre-conviction Bill Cosby was Dick Gregory. It was Dick Gregory connecting with Medgar Evers before his murder that led to, obviously, like a change in life for everything. He changed in, like, he was like 300 pounds at one point in time. He stopped drinking. He started focusing on, like, a lot of human rights. Like, this connected his life story differently. So at points, people will look at it like he doesn't have the money, whereas like a Bill Cosby, as we know, I mean, he was listed, I mean, for me, in my age, I mean, he was the richest black person before Oprah that people would talk about in entertainment and things like that, and very affluent. But because that's what led with him, I assume everyone interacting with Bill Cosby, probably from maybe like him as himself, like from like 19, maybe like A Piece of the Action to, him being incarcerated, it was always transactional. Like, he never got in any meeting like shaking somebody's hand. I assume Jay-Z, everybody he meets, the first thing people is like, all right, when is this person going to ask for some money? Beyonce. I
couldn't live a life.
Whereas
I couldn't live a life like that. That sounds miserable to me. That's miserable.
Yeah, other figures, it's got to be different. Like, depending upon how you connect with the community, like a guy like even I don't know, a Muhammad Ali, when we think of like a Maya Angelou, I don't think, if we would have met, rest in peace, Maya Angelou and Muhammad Ali, like, Nobody was walking up to Maya Angelou like, yo, straight up, I got some.
Right.
What up, though? You know what I'm saying? I'm popping out here. You know what I'm saying? You heard of rap snacks? I got rap candy. You know,
Right,
nobody
no.
was hitting them up like that. You meet Jay, people are already like plotting,
Yeah.
maybe 5 moves ahead. Like, I
And
know
I think
you know
it is
him.
perception.
And things like
It's perception
Mhm.
of those people before you get into the rooms with them, and you thinking,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, this person could be life changing for me."
Yes.
But like, did you ever think, what if I could be life changing for them?
That's deep.
Like, what do you? I always think about, what am I adding? I don't ever want to go into a room and not add something. I don't care if it's a room full of billionaires. I have something to add to your experience, to your existence, to something. Even if it's not tangible. Like, I'm a human and I have something that could be useful to you. Even if it's something as simple as telling you that your shirt looks nice. You know what I mean? Like, that's an additive. Like, that's me honoring you as a person. Like, seeing you and not just seeing what you have that I can take. I want to add to you. I want to make you smile. I want to make you feel appreciated. I want to make you feel something, even if it's, I want to be a reference for you if you are applying for a job, even if it is tangible, even if it is money. I always want to add value. I don't want anybody in my life that I can't add to them.
That's deep.
I don't want to be I just can't live like that. And because I know how it feels for people to be around and only call you when they need something. It's like, dang, I was having a bad day. You didn't even ask how my day was. I could have used a hug. But you want something from me. So what is it you want?
That's deep.
And I can't even do whatever it is that you're asking me for. I can't even do it with a smile when I want to, because I'm feeling used. Nobody wants to feel like that. So if I don't want to feel like that, why would I think Jay-Z want to feel like that? If I walk into a room with Jay-Z, Jay-Z is a person first.
Mm-hmm.
These are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't. That's
deep.
I hate the transactional nature that we approach other human beings with. I just can't. That doesn't work for me. That just does not work for me.
Deep. Very, very much so. I look forward to bringing you back.
Yeah, thank you.
And I also look forward to some cool stuff happening this summer.
Yeah, me too. This was great. This is a good time.
All day. Peace be.
See ya.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.